welcome to the CNBC TV 18 special. I'm SHEREEN, and we're in conversation with Sir Martin Sorrell and some of India's hottest startups.
I thought I was the hottest startup.
You are the hottest startup. But thank you very much again for joining us. Let me introduce our panelists here to you as well. Abhay Singhal, the co-founder and chief revenue officer of Inmobi. We've also got with us Kavin, Mittal, the CEO of Hike, and with us Suchi Mukherjee, the founder and CEO of LimeRoad.com. Appreciate you joining us on this special as well. You know, part of the Prime Minister's visit to the US involved Silicon Valley, and I don't know if we're sort of walking into the terrain of a convenient cliche like the India-China comparison, where India is going to be the next Silicon Valley. And I want to start by asking you, Abhay, what do you make of these claims that India is going to be the next Silicon Valley? I mean, yes, India is in the top 5 startup nations in the world. Yes, we've got unicorns like Inmobi sitting in India. But what do you make of this Silicon Valley comparison?
So Silicon Valley is more of a mindset than anything else, and I would actually admit that if anybody says that India will become the Silicon Valley, it's probably a statement a year too late, because certainly in the last 12 to 18 months, the amount of startups that have come in, the optimism that has gone in, suddenly entrepreneurship is the first choice for everybody who is great, rather than working for an MNC, which used to be the choice before. So certainly the moods have changed, optimism is there. Now what remains to be seen is whether the entire ecosystem even evolves to support the exits. Because really speaking, entrepreneurship is about when you are able to have clean exits, when you are able to either cleanly make money or cleanly give returns to our investors. It is absolutely.
You're not going to be at this for a long time.
Please do build, but you build the brand even by going public. And you know, we all know what are the hassles of going public.
So you're not enthused with the new guidelines that have come in by the market regulator in the bid to try and get the likes of you to actually list in India, as and when you do decide to list?
We're excited, but I think you still need to do way more than what is being done right now to be able to excite it, because certainly what we are seeing right now is the hope of a better future. And as entrepreneurship community, we are perennial optimists. So certainly we only see that silver lining at all points in time.
But you would focus on the exits. It's interesting what you say. So entrepreneurship is about exits as much as it is about entries, is it?
So
it's serial entrepreneurship.
So when I say exit, I mean exit is not about only selling it out. Exit is also about
giving their investors and giving their investors.
It's about investors need returns, because the money needs to be inserted.
An IPO, to my mind, is not an exit.
It is not an exit.
It's the start.
Yeah, exactly. But then returns are the ones that are being looked at, and I'm probably quantifying an exit as a return rather than anything else.
I think the exit is not so much about the money. It is about money, but it is about creating role models for the next generation of entrepreneurs. That's number one. Number two, taking us from being essentially a professional, service-oriented country, which is what we've been all these years, to becoming a risk-taking nation. And third, I think the whole Silicon Valley mentality, I think, got interpreted in China as we're going to be like the US, which is actually not the Silicon Valley mentality.
But is it any different today in India?
So India is about, if you look at the companies sitting here, I think a lot of us think about not saying we want to be the so-and-so of India, because the so-and-so of India, the Facebook of India is Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Google of India is Google. But when I think of LimeRoad, we're trying to build a platform in lifestyle which is as disruptive as it gets. In India, accounts for 21% of global manufacturing in lifestyle. So we're talking about disruption.
Is there a Western equivalent to LimeRoad?
There isn't. That's the point. And so, you
There's
know,
nothing that comes similar to it.
It's a viable Pinterest. We don't have viable Pinterest, and we don't have viable Pinterest from India that will bubble up all the manufacturing that happens in this country. It can only be built from India because you need access to that merchandise.
So how conscious was that when you were setting up Hike? Because, you know, again, whenever people talk about the startup story in India, it's like, when will we see the next Facebook out of India? When are we going to see the next WhatsApp? And I would imagine, you know, as Suchi said, the Facebook and the WhatsApp position is taken. When will we see companies with that scale and size is perhaps what the question ought to be?
The Silicon Valley idea is a mindset. I think it's a mindset not to build big companies, but to innovate and solve new problems. You see that happening very much in China today as well. I think the company sitting here doing that too in India. I think it's important for entrepreneurs to solve local problems, which is where these companies get sort of formed. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that happen. Companies like Grofers or Pepper Tap and people doing hyper-local delivery are rising in India first before the US and China because the market here is so different.
But speaking of the opportunity, and I think the opportunity that exists is well articulated, but why is it that we're seeing some of the Indian companies, even some of the unicorns, now being domiciled in Singapore, for instance? The ambiguity when it comes to FDI regulations, it's forcing companies to actually opt out of India. The ecosystem is not evolving as it should or as it ought to. How big a risk is that for companies like yourself?
It's a very big risk on multiple fronts. One is the IPOs, the exits and so on and so forth. Second is, I think, talent also in general. This is the first wave of the internet in this country. US has had 2 waves, China's had 2-3 waves. I think the ecosystem has to be built. I think that's very important. This is what companies like us today are doing. Building that mindset in this country across multiple facets, regulation, talent, people, operating structures, business models and so on and so forth, I think which this generation of companies will be responsible for and setting the tone for in the next 5-10 years.
Coming back to the first question to me about the Prime Minister, given what he's trying to achieve, won't he deal with a lot of the concerns that you just expressed, not on behalf of yourself necessarily, but everybody else, that if he manages to achieve, let's say, half or 3/4 of what he would like to achieve, he will set the ground rules and create the opportunity for exits, if that's what people, or for FDI or whatever.
So certainly, I think Prime Minister Modi is the most pro-business Prime Minister that one can imagine, and I only shudder with the thought that if he isn't able to do, then what else would the future look like?
The regulatory arbitrage, so to speak, is that forcing you to change the way that you do business in India?
We're in Singapore, just like many other players in the large ecosystem, and probably we were the first one to do that among all the large companies situated here. So certainly, it is concerning. But as I was saying, entrepreneurship is about die-hard optimism. It will have to change.
We re-domiciled WPP to Ireland when the Labour government, under Brown, threatened to increase, threatened to increase the tax on remittances from abroad, or actually non-remittances from abroad. If you left profits outside, it would be taxed whether you brought them in or not. And the threat of that moved us to Ireland. When the Conservative coalition came in, we came back as a result. So this is not unique
to India. No, it's not. It's not.
I'm going to write a book one day called The Powerless CEO. Well, are you laughing? But it's true. And so I figured out if I want them to go right, I say go left and they go right.